Alright dude, so check this out. Cloud805 recently put out a video talking about a tweet that he had saw, where I believe it was Majin Obama who was talking about how Dragonball FighterZ fans really should just accept the game for what it is and stop expecting certain content. Just be happy with the game that we have now and leave it at that, rather than worrying about things like rollback netcode and more seasons of DLC. So I wanted to make this video to invite you guys into the conversation as well and see what you guys think about it. I'll link Cloud's video in the description down below because I think he brought up a lot of good points, and I like his perspective on this, where he talked a little bit about how older generation players who played fighting games before online connectivity and all that good stuff, they learned in order to just accept the game that they were given. There wasn't really any kind of major balance patches or new DLC or any support after the game initially came out. It was just the community supporting the game and that was it. And nowadays you have more modern fighting game fans that just got into the genre and they expect the game to be supported for many years after. Now I agreed largely with what Cloud said, but I want to add a couple things because I've been playing fighting games ever since the arcade days. I would go to arcades pretty much every single weekend and waste my dad's money that he would give me in order to go ahead and play things that I liked. I wasn't any good at them and I never played any fighting game to a competitive level. I never took it, to that extent, but I was always playing fighting games since those times consistently. So I've seen and had fighting games that I've loved that didn't get any support after release. And I know what that's like. And I've seen and had fighting games that I've loved that did get lots of support after release. So I know what that's like as well. I have the kind of perspective of both parties there. With that, even I still expect certain fighting games to get a long amount of support years after in modern day. And the reason for that is because things follow trends, right? Like when there's a successful business practice in a field, everyone else falls in line trying to kind of capitalize on that new business practice. And with games like Fortnite and, Apex Legends, Xenoverse is another great example where they continue to get more and more support for plenty of years with tons of DLC and tons of add-ons and tons of new things added to the game, more balance patches. That is an extremely successful business practice. So Dragonball FighterZ, seeing this with one of their own franchise games, that being Xenoverse, of course they're going to continue to support the game, especially since the publisher, the person in charge of DLC, is Bandai Namco, and Bandai Namco put out so much DLC for Xenoverse, you can't really be mad when people expect more updates for FighterZ, when it's from the same publisher that pushes out tons of DLC for Xenoverse. Add on top of that the plenty of hints and logical reasoning behind people expecting DLC, and what you end up with is a community full of people that want more DLC, especially when Dragonball FighterZ is one of the best fighting games to ever grace our presence pretty much. And I feel like developers in this current day and age understand that extending the life of a game is not only great for the game itself, but it's also extremely profitable, as now they don't have to dedicate money and resources to building a whole other sequel. They can just extend the life of a single game that they have. So if it's up to them, if they can extend the life of a game 5, 7, 10 years, then they're gonna do it. Why wouldn't they? Especially if there's such a dedicated fan base for it. If they have that fan base, that clientele that's ready to dish out money for new content, then what point does it make in order to make a whole new game? Granted, in Dragonball FighterZ's position, I think there's a bunch of reasons to make a new game as far as gameplay mechanics, and it'll be easier to implement what everybody wants, that being rollback. So the reason for a sequel for Dragonball FighterZ is definitely there. I'm not denying that. But I'm also saying it makes sense for them to continue dishing out DLC. It makes sense for people to want more DLC. That's more so what I'm getting at. It also makes sense for a sequel. When you think about how much time ArcSys spent being completely silent about Dragonball FighterZ and Bandai Namco over this pandemic, you look at the fact that they had all this time to develop new content for Dragonball FighterZ, and really all they came out with Android 21 in the lab coat. They also have previous statements saying that they wanted to support a 2D, a single player, and a 3D fighting game for the next 10 years, and it's only been 4 years for Dragonball FighterZ. It starts to paint the picture of a broader scope of things for the franchise. Also, when you consider previous interviews where they talk about how they take fan requests extremely seriously and they put out characters that fans want, and 21 in Lab Coat wasn't what people wanted. Rather, they wanted people like Majin Vegeta or Super Saiyan 4 and stuff of that sort. It leads us to believe that, alright, if you gave us this, then there's gotta be more coming. So I don't think it's completely unreasonable for the Dragonball FighterZ fanbase to expect more, especially when there's so many hints out there to suggest that they are planning more stuff. Do I think that people should accept the game that they have currently and just play that? Sure, yeah, I think they should be really satisfied with what we already have, and if the game doesn't continue, then that should be okay. But I do think people aren't crazy for wanting more DLC and more updates. I think that's completely reasonable. That's just my thoughts on the topic though. I mean, Cloud and Majin Obama are two extremely knowledgeable and credible people, so I do think their perspectives carry a lot of weight. I think it kind of makes sense because they've seen other games in the past that they can reference. We all have, and that's exactly why I think your guys' point of view is equally as relevant, and that's why I want to hear from you in the comments down below. So if you're new here, feel free to subscribe for daily Dragon Ball FighterZ content, and I'll catch you guys back here tomorrow. Thanks for watching.